Ontario Premier Doug Ford says it's time we're treated like adults and has announced that by Labor Day weekend, we'll be able to buy beer, wine, and other drinks at gas stations and corner stores. Now, Quebec is the only other province where this is allowed. So, do we really need this convenience? Capri, I'm going to start with you. The audience has spoken.
Okay, you know what? I apparently am like bringing like the negative energy here today because once again I'm disagreeing with the lovely studio audience here at The Social because I have no problem with this, and maybe this is the American perspective. I come from the state of Ohio. I was a former legislator there, and you know, look, let's be honest. Here in Ontario, LCBOs, the beer stores, you know, they're pretty much everywhere as well, right?
Yep.
And this would bring in business to small businesses that don't necessarily have access to this kind of revenue stream. So I like supporting small business. I think that's a good thing. I think that there might be a middle ground that I'll offer up from my home state of Ohio, because I know that there are, I think, legitimate concerns about what happens if it's a 24-hour, you know, gas station, right? So people are going to come in the middle of the night. They've already had you know, 1 or 10 drinks, and like, this is great. We're going to go get, you know, another 12-pack. Well, in my home state of Ohio, what we do, even in the places where they do sell, you know, beer and wine, they don't sell alcohol, actual hard alcohol. That is sold at a state store like LCBO. But for beer and wine, for places like gas stations, what they do is they put up a sign and they say, this isn't sold from 11:30 p.m. till 8 a.m.
Okay.
And you know that. And so you can't get it. They will not sell it to you. You can't do it at self-checkout, like, end of. So that might be something Premier Ford and others to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but I kind of feel like wherever I turn, there's a beer store or a big giant grocery store that sells beer and wine. So it feels like a funny thing to be pushing from the Premier from Ford, because it's like running on this idea that we need something that is kind of already ubiquitous everywhere. It's like, we need more squirrels in Ontario. No,
yes, we do.
We've already got lots of squirrels.
Also, I don't appreciate, I mean, I understand that small businesses may benefit from this, but here's the thing. Pushing this ahead of schedule, did you know it's going to cost us taxpayers at least $225
to bail out the beer store, right?
Which
is not
break it down.
Yeah,
so, it's more.
There are those who actually think the full price tag to us, the taxpayers, will actually add up to hundreds of millions more than the $225 million.
Actually, $1 billion.
So $1 billion, closer to $1 billion. So you just sit with that, and then think of the offset. Like, we've kind of had a message over the last couple of years coming from health, which has talked about the impact of alcohol. That for a long time, we didn't really think about it, right? We know that no amount is safe, and people can make individual adult decisions about safety, risk, and how they're utilizing that, for sure. But at the same time, we know that in the decade between 2010 and 2020, healthcare costs in Ontario alone associated with alcohol increased 35%. So you think about the weight of that on our healthcare system. Why couldn't we come up with a different way to spend money?
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
To help out. You know,
I feel like whenever this province of Ontario is going through some real issues, Premier Doug Ford starts dangling some kind of alcohol initiative. Like, hey, I know we have these other issues.
Because it's a revenue maker.
This is a revenue generator. And I'm like, let's pay attention. You touched on it. It's actually going to cost us $1 billion. And let me break down where that money is going to, what it's going to cost. $225 million will go to the beer store to speed up the expansion. LCBO rebate, $375 million. We're paying for that. LCBO rebates, $375 million. Wholesale discounts for large grocery stores who are already making enough money. Thank you very much. $150 million. And foregone licensing, that's going to cost us $300 million. So when you total it, it's $1 billion so you can have the convenience of getting alcohol at your convenience store. And here's the deal. We think that the small businesses are going to benefit, and they will. But you know who's really going to benefit? The big box stores and the grocery store chains, who, by the way, are doing very well. And I don't know about you, but when I talk to people who live in this province, I don't hear them saying, oh, my big issue is I can't get alcohol at the convenience store. They're like, I can't
definitely not.
They're like, I can't afford my rent. I can't afford to have another child because it's too expensive. Healthcare, if people in smaller communities, my hospital is closing down.
Not to mention mental health services, addiction services, women's rights, like but the irony
here. And it's that the LCBO at one time was the biggest single buyer of alcohol in the world. It's not so now, but it is a monopoly. This would end that monopoly somewhat.
But that monopoly is going to go to?
But exactly, to big box stores, but also independent convenience store owners, and it would bring down the price. It would end a monopoly somewhat. But the flip side on that is that the LCBO, that monopoly, provides this province with $2.5 billion
in
revenue that goes back to hospitals, that goes back to
So this is my big question.
Yeah.
How is the revenue structure actually structured? Because if you're going to expand the marketplace, the best thing you can do, because booze is a huge revenue generator for government, is to ensure that all that money is going back to those places, which is what we do in Ohio.
What society do we want here? Because if you're creating the problem in order to fix the problem with revenue, you got something to look at there.
Yeah.
We know that domestic abuse situations
but
are
politicians don't
exacerbated.
like to raise taxes, so they got to figure it out someplace else.
But
Right?
there's also an issue right now where for the first time, the alcohol consumption is down in North America. So it's also a very puzzling thing for them to be pushing. It's like people aren't drinking as much. So why are you pushing this initiative? Lots of question marks, Doug Ford, but we're watching you. Election season is coming.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.